Good evening. You're listening live to the Two Extreme Horror Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Indian Hill Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I'm here with the real RDV and Professor Pixel. Tonight's movie, Vincent Price, Diana Rigg, Theater of Blood, 1973, I believe. Gentlemen, good evening. How are we this evening?
Doing good.
Great.
Great. I hope we're doing great because this movie, Theater of Blood with Vincent Price, has got a lot of prescient themes to it, among them social justice warrior triggering, participation trophies. I don't even know whether I should call this a comedy because it's definitely a horror movie, but this, to me, my initial impressions, a very elaborate film, a good film, a very watchable film. It's actually got some gore stuff, a pretty decent body count. Diana Rigg looks fabulous in it. She does a great job. I love Vincent Price. He's very watchable. But man, what a friggin' over-the-top film. I forgot how goofy, in a sense, this is due to its Shakespearean element. What do you guys think?
You know, you're absolutely right. I think it's actually listed as a horror comedy, which I know you hate, but
right.
This movie is quite enjoyable. Whenever we're watching Vincent Price perform, while it is over the top, like you say, that he just does it so fantastically that you can't help but just a little bit of you wants to see him keep moving on.
Yes. And we'll talk about the ending here too, because I think that's pretty interesting too. What do you think about it, RDV, overall?
Well, I agree. It is a horror comedy. It was so horrible that it was actually funny.
So you didn't like the film?
Nah, I'm not a fan of it. It was hokey. Okay.
No, well, we can all have our feelings and thoughts about it too, because we know feelings are more important than thoughts, right? The irrational versus rational brain. And I'm kind of half joking because when I'm watching this film, it starts off kind of earnestly where Vincent Price is an actor, and he's one of these serious types. And back then, theater was still thought of, I think, in more high regard, especially because it's really a period piece. It was filmed in '73, and some critics decide to rip him a new one, thinking what he did wasn't very good, and so basically he wants to go back and whack them all. But it's one of those kind of Jean Valjean things where he ends up kind of in hiding, incognito. Everybody thinks he's dead, and he goes back. And when he goes to whack all these critics that have pissed him off and did him wrongly in his eyes, each of the deaths is kind of copied out of like a Shakespearean play. And this is where it gets really kind of kooky, because it's not unnecessarily elaborate, because that's what this movie is about. But I think part of it that almost borders on comedy to me is the fact that Vincent Price, he really wanted to do Shakespeare, and he's just so damn elaborate in this. And the thing is a lot of actors were originally Shakespearean trained. They grew up performing these roles in these plays, and some of them, of course, would go on into film. And for Vincent Price, we think of him as just some guy in horror. And I think a lot of us take for granted, especially with older films or these older actors, we go, well, that's all they knew how to do was horror films, so they're not that good of an actor because it's horror. You don't have to be a good actor. And that completely misses the mark. He is kind of like so serious in this. To me, it's so corny. That's where it kind of gets a little bit funny, especially with some of the deaths. And for me, I don't know. I'm saving the ending for last because that kind of just made me go, well, I think you might have something to say about that, Doctor.
Well, yes, it was an ending that it went up in smoke, but
oh, stop it.
Yeah. No, I was looking at it like, I'm like, honestly, when I was watching this movie, I'm thinking like, who would be a better person to replace Peter Vincent if they updated this? I'm thinking Anthony Hopkins.
Well, another Shakespearean trained actor that's been around since the early 70s.
Yes. Who has a history of like scary roles behind him, doing horror movies. Because Peter Vincent's always been portrayed as the good guy.
Peter Vincent?
Yeah.
Okay, Vincent Price. I caught that. I'm the little Friday Night reference.
Yes. Yeah. So Vincent Price, he's always been like the good guy. He's Van Helsing, or he's see him as this like guy. He's been like living underground or just just doing all this stuff. You can tell he's got a screw loose.
Oh yeah, he's an actor.
So that's so trying to look at it as him. I think if we would have got somebody else other than him, maybe it would have been. But I just felt like the movie was just kind of slow paced. Pick it up, maybe do the deaths a little bit like more gory, a little thing, because that's one thing. Yeah, because like I said, it's like the one guy gets stabbed in the heart. You just see the knife. You don't see nothing else. That's why I was like, okay, that was just kind of like, like they didn't have fake. They couldn't afford fake blood. I mean, I don't know how what the budget was for this movie, but it felt really low budget.
I feel like there's some missing the mark. I mean, yeah, they could have made it a little more bloody, but I think that would have made it a little goofy on my end. But a lot of the deaths are so gruesome. Yeah. I mean, the only female critic there, he uses a hairdryer to fry her, like to resemble the end of Joan of Arc.
How shocking!
Then he feeds one critic his dogs and brings their heads out on a platter.
I know.
These deaths are they're not tame at all. They are so it almost whenever I saw him eating his dog, I was like, oh no, my stomach doesn't feel good. And you feel guilty because you enjoy watching Vincent Price get his false sense of justice.
How heartless could you be to enjoy their deaths?
Well, no, it wasn't to enjoy their deaths. It was supporting.
He's trolling
him in a way. Going.
That one guy literally lost his heart. He was that broken.
Yeah.
He died in his sleep. He died in his sleep. Just me, like watching this movie.
Well, two quick comments on all these different types of deaths. Yes, it's overly elaborate. That's the whole point to the movie. And so I appreciate that they did that. And to me, honestly don't know if, I know that British cinema, like other places, were very heavily edited. So even films in the 70s and 80s, the shock films that would come a little bit later in the 70s and 80s, and some European type trash cinema films, horror stuff that weren't met by the standards of Britain, whatever their film commission is, they would edit heavily. So it's possible that the films being made in the style, they may intentionally try to eliminate, like you see the actual blood going in. It's like the movie Psycho. You never see the knife going in a body, but everyone thinks you do, and it's supposed to be horrific, and it's really not. That's, of course, a different type of movie, but I felt like some of that was in here. The other quick comment is that I'm wondering if they the makers wanted to really focus on how absurd and over the top these elaborate death scenes are, and to have you as the viewer focusing on them, it was going to eliminate something that might distract you, like blood and gore and blood squirting all over the screen and stuff. Because I mean, frankly, if you're serving a master his dogs, maybe you don't want to focus on the dogs being dead, but just the heads being served, like you said, on a silver platter. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the ending here a little bit, because Diana Rigg, she's his daughter. She considers this her best film. She's just gorgeous in here. I loved her in Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's one of the best Bond films out there, one of my favorites. She's been in several things too. I didn't realize after rewatching this that she was in it originally. I hadn't made that connection to that point, so that was kind of like a special treat. But what did you guys think of the ending?
It was absurdly over the top, as always. That was a problem.
Fine. Yeah. I mean, the whole set was on fire
the entire time.
They burned it down.
Yeah, burn it all down. Well, look, this is the movie that, it's hard to... of course, because it's Vincent Price, you want to automatically root for him no matter what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. But did you feel that, or think that his character, the way it was presented and written, that he was right and the critics were wrong? Or did you find yourself siding with the critics, going, hey, here's this whiny ass actor guy and he's going after all of us, and he just wants his trophy here at the end, which he really kind of doesn't get, kind of, sort of. I mean, whose side were you on here? Because I think it not being clear kind of makes it tough to kind of. I mean, I'm rooting for Vincent Price, but it makes it tough to kind of really pick from it, because you could say it's like an early movie that says this is the perils of being an actor, where you're getting triggered because you care about what other people think. I mean, so what do you think of that?
So,
Like I said, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say that no, I had no reason to be on his side, really, because yeah, we don't know exactly what they said, or only one of them I guess said that his performance was just I guess way over the top. Yeah, they didn't like him, so boo-hoo, move on. So it's like I said, obviously you could go other places. You could leave freaking England and go to the United States if you want to and start over. You can do stuff. I mean, you have a daughter, but like, I felt horrible because he roped his daughter into doing this. So even if he died and she survived, it's like, what's the point of that? That's not a life you want for your children.
Well, no, before almost all the murders, he read out the reviews out loud, so that way it would be fresh in his mind whenever he went in for the kill.
That was the 2 shots of whiskey to get him, hard up so he'd go make his killing.
Yeah. But specifically at the end, we mentioned how it's hard to support him because the entire time, I mean, he is killing people. But at that final moment where he's given the speech and then the roof crumbles and he falls, what I was saying before is exactly what the critic that survives says. And as he says that, you're like, wow, these people are bastards.
Yeah.
He just survived, and the only thing that he can focus on is, his performance before he died. That was ridiculous. These are cold, heartless people, and you're realizing, why on earth would we want them to survive?
It's Vincent Price is somebody we've actually not really covered at all here on the Two Extreme Horror Show, and so we were wanting to get one of his movies in for this Halloween season, and so I think Theater Blood's a really good choice because it does show how good of an actor he is with all the Shakespearean elements to it and the different parts of the speeches that he gives off in here. It is a long film. It is, so I think it's over 2 hours. So you're right, RDV. The pacing of it seems definitely deliberate. That being said, whenever you take an old story and you update it to modern times, that's kind of interesting. A lot of TV shows like to do that. You get your Romeo and Juliet nonsense stuff. You get other things. And here, of course, it's so obvious it's Shakespeare because that's the basis of him as an actor, what he's getting criticized for. It was just neat to kind of see that they tried making it like in contemporary setting and how he reacts to it, because you don't necessarily have a lot of, people getting triggered and going psychotic here. And so to me, that's what made it almost like a comedy or a spoof, because I'm going, really? Are you kidding me? But then, like you were saying, Pixel, the deaths in here, serving a guy dog heads is disgusting because I'm a big dog guy, but in a way it's kind of funny. And so it's not one of these horror movies that I look at and go, oh my God, it's kind of scary. It's kind of creepy, but it's Vincent Price. Whatever you think or feel about Vincent Price and his abilities or horror, to me, it's kind of like a guilty pleasure kind of treat. It puts a little bit of a smile on my face. It's not one of these ones like, oh, this is serious horror. It's really, really awesome. It's got a really negative kind of ending that makes you think. It's not a happy ending either. It's just kind of one of those womp, womp, womp endings to me.
Yeah. Here's an interesting fact. One of the first critic that he kills actually did a lot of Shakespearean plays and actually played King Lear.
Yeah.
Previously, before this movie came out.
It is a well-acted film, and unless you're a hardcore classic film fan, especially British cinema, you may not know any of these other people. You may know Diana Rigg. Younger listeners of the Two Extreme Horror Show or anything else here on the Extreme Movie Show know that we cover a lot of older films as well as newer ones. And of course, Vincent Price to me is the guy that we're really focusing on here. But you're right, there's definitely a lot of people in here that have acted in other films, have done well, not just Diana Rigg, but who you're mentioning. So overall, like I say, I think it's a solid film. It's not one I would say immediately go see, but if you're in kind of a weird, goofy kind of movie, if you want a lighthearted, G-rated Saw movie to go see, this might be it. That was your best comment pre-show, Doctor, saying this is kind of like what Saul, probably got its idea from.
Most likely, and if you watch this movie in reverse, it's an old man bringing old people back to life.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I understand you weren't crazy about it. I'm glad you're able to kind of mention that, because we can't all just sit here and pat each other in the back and say how great a film is if we don't think it is. So what about you, Pixel? Any last thoughts?
I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I can recommend it. It's like you said, it's not a horror movie and oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I mean, you have little moments in which the anticipation builds, but it's really just something that you can sit back and kind of enjoy. Like I said, you still feel kind of guilty because you are watching people be brutally murdered.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a fantastic piece, and I'm glad that we watched it this year.
Yeah, I think for me, this is all summed up in the one scene where he's in the gymnasium and he's fencing against the one guy, and they're going back and forth. And fencing is a piercing weapon. The foil that he had, he did not have a saber, but yet you see all these big, of course, because it's a movie, all these slashes in the guy's chest there that he's wearing the fencing outfit, and you see him kind of running and jumping, and there's a little bit of first person perspective camera work in there too, and then there's a scene there right at the end where he gores him. He takes his hat off, and I'm like, and it's Vincent Price, and he's hunched over, and I'm like, that's just kind of silly. I mean, and so that's kind of how I think of it, but still watchable.
So,
I mean, they weren't shooting for comedy, but it's got that kind of light element to it.
The Burbage Theater, where it's Lion Arts, a fictional hideout, it actually was the Putney Hippodrome.
Hippodrome, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
Built in 1906, had been vacant, and then depilated for only a decade before used in the film. Then it was later demolished to make for housing uses. But before this, 1972, Ian McShane and Oliver Reed did a movie in it called Second Target. So
Ian McShane from Deadwood, from Lovejoy,
from John Wick.
Things.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. So he's been around a lot too. So like I say, there's a lot of people in this group of English acting that started off in Shakespearean plays, crossed over, then you had a younger generation. So pretty interesting to see. But yeah, well acted movie. It's a decent looking flick visually. If you're in a Vincent Price kind of mood, you can't go wrong watching this film. It's one of his better ones.
Yeah, and Price apparently it's reportedly that it was one of his favorite movies because he always wanted the chance to act with Shakespeare, but found himself typecast because of all the horror films he did.
Yep.
And Diana Rigg also regarded this as her best film.
Yeah, she's such a cutie pie. Yeah, nice contrast to Vincent Price's, serious mug. All right, guys, there you have it. Theater of Blood, Vincent Price, Diana Rigg, 1973, a quote-unquote horror film, an old classic of Price's, one of his better films overall. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. Guys, thanks for joining on a conversation. I will talk to y'all later. Have a good night.
So long.